Mets trade talks intensifying. Insiders reveal new trade targets. With the All-Star Game now history and the Major League Baseball trade deadline soon approaching at the end of the month, GMs will be scrambling, and David Stearns has some very intriguing targets to take a close look at. I am Adam Choit, your host for today here on Mets Digest. And before we dig in and on all that, I just want to give you guys a quick reminder, a quick heads up to please subscribe, because as you can see, nearly 68% of you guys watching these videos are not subscribed. So please do that. Click subscribe. It is definitely appreciated for sure. It only takes a second, of course. So let's dig in. We have reports. We have insiders. We have reports from insiders. Let's dig in and take a look at what we got here. Edwin Diaz's presence doesn't necessarily mean that the Mets can't add another current closer to serve as a setup man or high leverage arm in the late innings for the rest of the season. And this was the sentiment that New York Post insiders Joel Sherman and Jon Heyman shared during a July 15th podcast episode. I think that the Mets are good enough to win a championship this year, and I don't think David Stearns can take a half measure here. I think he's got to use real prospects, Sherman said. If Jhoan Duran or Griffin Jax gets into the market, I think the Mets have to be very bold and try to get that kind of relief pitcher. That is Grant Young from SI.com talking about a couple of Minnesota Twins relief pitchers that the Mets are targeting. Let's dig in on a little bit more from him. Continuing on, the more teams that are sellers at the deadline, the more potential partners the New York Mets will have to make a deal with. And in a July 9th article from The Athletic by writers Tim Britton, Aaron Gleeman, and Chad Jennings, the Mets were listed as one of three top trade fits for Twins reliever Griffin Jax, who they called a high-end reliever if the Twins do decide to sell. Elite closer Jhoan Duran will surely be their most sought-after bullpen piece. However, that might mean that Jax could come at a discounted rate, which could serve the Mets, who don't need a closer given how great Edwin Diaz has been. It might serve them extremely well in terms of who they'd have to part ways with to acquire him. That is Grant Young from SI.com talking about Griffin Jax, a potential reliever that the Mets could take a look at and target. Of course, it all depends on who are you going to give up in these trades. Let's dig in a little bit more on Jhoan Duran's numbers here. There he is right there, and his background a little bit, and some reaction to these reports. This is from Dan Bartels. If I'm the Mets, I'd target Jhoan Duran. Not as expensive as Emmanuel Clase. Duran has 2 more years of arbitration before becoming an unrestricted free agent. And here's a reaction to Dan's post on X from Metscast. If I'm the Mets, I am 100% exploring Jhoan Duran. He is a top-of-the-line late-inning pitcher closer. It would most likely cost multiple top 15 prospects in order to land him, considering he is under control through 2027. There are his numbers. 41 in the third innings pitched this season with a 1.66 ERA and a 10.2 per 9 innings strikeout rate. That is pretty damn impressive. Of course, he has an electric entrance. The Mets already had that. We already had that, of course, with Edwin Diaz, so we would not need that. But you could have an electric entrance as well in the 8th inning or 7th inning or whenever he's needed during the game. And those are his numbers right there. As you can see, that 1.66 ERA this season, 1.09 career whip, 2.41 in career ERA. We got 288 strikeouts and 227 and 2/3 innings in his career. So this guy is a strikeout artist, dominant pitcher, only 177 hits I see in 220 in those 227 and 2/3 innings. So this would be quite a pitcher for the Mets to be able to land on the trade market. That is certainly true for sure. Let's talk a little bit about Griffin Jax. There he is right there, number 22 on the Twins. Griffin Jax is coming off one of the most dominant relief seasons in the last 5 years. Over 71 innings, he supported an ERA of 2.03, a whip of .87, and 95 strikeouts in 2024. While he has not been as good in 2025, giving up as many runs already as he did in all of 2024, he has been far from disappointing. With an ERA of 3.82 over 41.1 innings, 41 1/3, this is yet another chance for the Mets to buy low on a guy that has proven he can perform That was from Kevin Ranoff, risingapple.com, talking about Griffin Jax. Let's take a look at his numbers too there. There they are right there. As you can see, a little bit of a dip in his performance this year. But look at last year, that .87 whip that was being referenced earlier. He's up to his 121 this year is not all that bad at all. And looking at the career whip, of course, 1.13. If he can get anything close to that in the second half of the season on the New York Mets and in their uniform, that would be something a welcome sight in their bullpen. Can never have too many relievers. Now the problem is, and the issue could become, is that these guys are not the only team. The Mets are not the only team that are interested in relief pitchers and dominant relief pitchers at that. But the Tigers here, as you can see from the Detroit Times, the Tigers are strongly interested in Twins pitchers Jhoan Duran and Griffin Jax per B. Nightingale account. The Mets are not going to be the only teams in the trade market looking to bolster their bullpen, but there's a good chance that the Twins will not want to trade their bullpen studs to a division rival in the Detroit Tigers, and they'll want to trade them outside the league. Unfortunately, they could those pitchers may end up going to the Reds, of course, or another team, because as you can see, a Sleeper Reds account on X reporting that the Reds also have a strong interest in Jhoan Duran and Griffin Jax. So the Mets have plenty of competition for relief pitchers on the market. Trade deadline's definitely going to be heating up in the coming week. I'm sure we're going to have plenty of reports here on Mets Digest, discussing it all and digging in on what the Mets are looking to do to improve the roster and push towards the playoffs, push towards World Series is always the goal, of course. But what do you guys think about those two relief pitchers on the Twins? What are you willing to give up? Let us know in the comments. Like, share, comment below. Let us know what you think, and let's go Mets.